Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Alpiani Wahidah and my friend Intan Yudia. We are from the second group. We want to deliver our discuss about what is translation. Okay, we want to discuss about definition of translation, social function of translation and the role of translation, definition, process and product, development in translation studies and translation studies. Definition of translation. The first definition is from Newmark, rendering the meaning of a text into another language in the way that the author intended the text. And the second definition from Hatim and Munday, the definition is the process of transferring a written text from search language to target language. The third definition is from Nida the Tabor. Translation consists in reproducing in the receptor language the close natural equivalent of the search language message. And the last definition from Catford, the replacement of textual material in one language, search language, by equivalent textual material in another language, target language. So, what is translation in another meaning? Okay, translation by dictionary definition is consists of changing from one state or form to another, to turn into one's own or another's language. Generally, translation is the process of rendering meaning, ideas of message of a text from one language to another language. And translation is basically change of form the actual word, phrase, clause, sentence, paragraph, etc., which are spoken or written. The form which the translation is made will be called the search language, and the form into which it is to be changed will be called the respect language or target language. Example: assume that we we are translating to English to the Spanish sentence. English, course language, and Spanish is target language. Course language is what is your name, and Spanish of target language is common si ilema. Translation as form of communication, translation function, and the role of translation. The purpose of translating text was to make the original understood by a large number of people. Translation also to communicate, and its bridge between culture, story, the universality of translation come from its connection with thought process, as Judy Lotman affirms, the elementary edge of a thing is translation, and the process to embrace that the elementary mechanism of translation is dialogue. The irreducibility of dialogue to mere communication in a language come to the dialogue's participant is very important. For Lehman, everything began with the need for dialogue. The need for dialogue, a basic situation, presents both real dialogue and even the extent of a language in which to count it. Translation is important in some concepts. It's meant to experience cultural phenomena that would otherwise to be too foreign. It's important of the native tongue translation in literature, translation in media, translation in journal, translation in education, and the last translation in business. Translation process and product. The good translation product. Translation should go through the following process. The first is translating. Translator read the text to get the whole message of the search text. It is faster to use online translation service, but we cannot depend 100% on its translation product. Example, a farmer must transport his dog, a duck, and a bag of corn across a river. Short text, seorang petani harus mengangkut anjingnya, seekor bebek, dan sekantong jagung ke seberang sungai. Second is revising the translation product. The translation check and revise the text to ensure that the target is accurate, exact, and readable enough for the target read. Mass translation will put the translation aside or overnight to find more error in the translation product later. Example, before revision. Seorang petani harus mengangkut anjingnya, bebek, dan sekantong jagung di seberang sungai. After being revision, seorang petani harus mengangkut anjingnya, seekor bebek, dan sekantong jagung di seberang sungai. The third is proofing. The translation product that has been revised will be read by proofreaders to check whether the tone, text sound, unnatural. Example, seorang petani harus mengangkut anjingnya, seekor bebek, dan sekantong jagung di sebelah sungai. Revision by translator, seorang petani harus membawa seekor anjing, bebek, dan sekantong jagung ke seberang sungai. Translation as a product focus on the translation itself, search and target text, evaluation and feedback on the translate text. Improving the text, example, quality, leveraging, using translation to improve the process, interdisciplinary nature with linguistic focus, example, linguistic evaluation. Translation is as a process focus on the translator and their interaction, example, with tools, conceptualization and evaluation of cognitive process, improving the process of translation, example, efficiency, using advanced to inform teaching and practice, interdisciplinary nature with psychological focus, example, eye tracking. Development in translation studies. Translation is a process based on the theory that is impossible to abstract the meaning of a text from its form and produce that meaning with the very different form of a second language. The translation then consists of studying the lexion, grammatical structure, communication situation, and cultural context of the short language text, analyzing it in order to determine its meaning, and then reconstructing this some meaning use the lexion and grammatical structure which are appropriate in the receptor language and its cultural context. On the development of translation studies, I see translation as a attempt to produce a text so transparent that it does not seem to be translated. A good translation is like a pane of glass. You only notice that it's there where there are little imperfections, scarred, bubbles, ideality. There should be any. It should never call attention it itself. Translation studies. The 1980s was a decade of consolidation for the field linguistic line known as translation studies. Then, in the 1990s, translation studies finally come into its own. Of this proved to be the discount of its global expansion. Translation studies is an academic discipline which concerns itself with the study of translation. The term today is understood to reference to the study of the academic discipline at large, including non-literary translation, interpretation, pedagogy, and others issues. Translation studies is just a few decades out starting from 1950. Scholars and experts were interested in forming current theories and conducting research on translation. But it is also true that not so much had been done research on translation. But it's also true that not so much had been done within the framework of this new discipline, and there are still issues to be analyzed and discussed. Writing on translation Europeans believe that translation started with the Romans and the Greeks, but it is very important to bear in mind that translation might have started so long before, and there are proof for that in many parts of the world. Hung and Porter claim that there were government officials with responsibility for translation in China century BC, but Cicero and Hart gave much importance to the problem of translation. Product difference theories and highly influenced the next generation of translation. The Arab word, the early translation is the Arab word that back to be the early translation is the Arab word that back to be period of Syrians. They translate into Arabic a large heritage. Syrians were highly influenced by the Greek translation. Syrian's translations were more literal and faithful to the original claim ayat. Kitty by the edit. According to Edith Duff, Georgias was one of the best Syrian translations. His famous Syrian translation of Aristotle's book in the world was very faithful and close to the original. Okay, thanks and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.